Hello BookTube. Today I'm bringing to you part 14 of my science fiction and fantasy library tour. This one should be about as quick as the one yesterday because these shelves aren't as long as some of the other ones I have. So let's get started. First we have The Path of Anger, The Book and the Sword, one by Antoine Rouaud, who I believe is a French writer. So far, this is the only book in the series I know of that's been released, at least in America. And I kind of liked it and kind of didn't like it. I need to come back to it eventually. And check and see if any sequels have been released. Next, I have two Harry Potter novels, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Well, if you're British, it's Philosopher's Stone, but it's the American edition. And Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Both of these books came from Goldin's Book Exchange, and I bought them a few years ago when I was on a kick of really, Harry Potter is, like it or not, a foundational text in contemporary fantasy now, and it would be incumbent to read it. I basically got the first chapter of, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and I'm like, no. I kind of wanted to throw it against the wall like Harold Bloom, I think, made when he reviewed it. So I might come back to it one of these days, or I might just eventually unhaul it one way or another. I don't know. But those are the only two Harry Potter books I have. Next is The White Mists of Power by Christine Catherine Rush. Next is The Ragged Blade by Christopher Ruzz, which I read in October, and I think I reviewed. Didn't particularly care for it, unfortunately. I thought the writing wasn't all that good. The main character was just something off about him, and the gay storyline, or queer storyline, I guess, it didn't really sit well with me, ultimately. But anyway, I might reread it eventually again and give it another go, as I want to do. Next is a book by Fred Saberhagen. This is The Mask of the Sun. Picked it up from Friends at the Library Booksell Alcove. And I want to say I picked up the Christine Catherine Rush from Goldin's. Next, I have a book by Sophia Samatar. This is The Winged Histories. It is a former library book from Willoughby Eastlake Public Library. And I got it through Alibris. My notebook over. There we go. Okay. Now we have some Brandon Sanderson. This is The Way of Kings, book 1 in the Stormlight Archive, in a mass market paperback edition. I picked this up from Brazos Books in Waco. There are two locally owned used bookstores. There's Goldin's Book Exchange, where I do the bulk of my used book buying locally. I've been going there for years, and it has a fantastic science fiction and fantasy collection. But I wanted to check out Brazos Books, which is a little bit closer to where I live, even though obviously both of them are pretty far, but Brazos Books is more on the western side of Waco compared to Goldin's, which is more in the central part of Waco. And so The Way of Kings is one of the books that I picked up from Brazos Books. Need to read it eventually, but I mean, it is a chunkster. The next is Words of Radiance, Book 2 in the Stormlight Archive. And I'm thinking of picking up the third book here in the not too distant future. I also have Mistborn and Mass Market Paperback. Picked this up from, I want to say, the Friends of the Library book sale. I want to say this came from the mini book sale this year. I know it's a very paltry Brandon Sanderson collection. I need to work better on that. Next, I have Immaru by Charles Saunders. This is a foundational text in more recent Sword and Sorcery. This is also the founding text in, or founding novel of Sword and Soul, which is a subgenre of Sword and Sorcery that focuses on African inspirations, or societies, cultures, and narratives inspired by African culture and history. Rather enjoyed it. Need to come back to that. And then we have Barsk by Lawrence M. Schoen. This is a former library book from Prince George's County Memorial Library System. Makes me wonder if this is, does not say. I'm not a huge fan of this book. I do need to give it another go eventually, but it didn't really appeal to me all that much. Moving on, we have Snakewood by Adrian Selby. This is again another former used library book, and does not say where exactly it came from. Probably because that Rolling Meadows Library from Rolling Meadows, Illinois. Oh. Looking forward to eventually getting to that one. Next, I have a relatively recent release, We Are the Dead by Mike Shackley. Definitely looking forward to reading this. And next is the book that I'm really probably the biggest reason why I want to rearrange my science fiction and fantasy library. This chunkster, The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Because, I mean, where it stands now, it's kind of like this. And I'm not entirely sure if this is bad for the book. Anyway, so I picked it up when it first came out earlier this year, and I made some headway with it. I had some issues with it. Some of the characters, some of the narrative choices early on didn't really appeal to me, but I do want to come back to this sometime in the new year. Not entirely sure when. I'll be talking about my 2020 reading plans probably in the next video, but let's continue with the last 3 books in this shelf. So we have New Suns, original speculative fiction by people of color, edited by Nisi Shaw. This was one of 3 anthologies that came out earlier this year. People's Future of the United States being one of them, and I want to say it's Outcast Hours, which focused more on New Weird, that I was interested in collecting. I haven't yet picked up Outcast Hours. I'll probably do that maybe in the next few months, but anyway. So let's go through and see some of the stories in here. So the foreword is by LeVar Burton, which is exciting. The Galactic Tourist Industrial Complex by Tobias S. Buckle. Dear Dancer by Kathleen Alcala. The Virtue of Unfaithful Translations by Min-Soo Kang, Come Home to Atropos by Stephen Barnes, The Fine Print by Chinelo Onwualu, Unkind of Mercy by Alex Jennings, Burn the Ships by Alberto Yanez, The Freedom of the Shifting Sea by Jamie Go, 3 Variations on a Theme of Imperial Attire by E. Lily Yu, Blood and Bells by Karine Loachi, Give Me Your Black Wings, O Sister by Silvia Moreno Garcia, The Shadow We Cast Through Time by Inchopramit Das. I have got to get his, The Devourers. I have got to remember to get his Devourers one of these days. The Robots of Eden by Anil Menon, Dumb House by Andrea Hairston, One Easy Trick by Hiromi Goto, Harvest by Rebecca Roanhorse, Kelsey and the Burdened Breath by Darcy Little Badger, After It by Nisi Shaw, and of course contributor biographies. Definitely looking forward to getting to that one. Next I have a book from the Friends Library Booksell Alcove. This is Children of the Night by Dan Simmons. This is, I think, a modern vampire story, and it is from the Waco-McLennan County Library System. And finally, in a preview of what's to come tomorrow, starting off, is a Clark Ashton Smith's Lost Worlds. Clark Ashton Smith is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, science fiction and fantasy authors. I adore his work. Unfortunately, his work is also relatively hard to find. I mean, yes, all of his work is available online at the Eldritch Dark, but I much prefer physical copies. And so far, I've managed to pick up this book from Alibris. This is an anthology from, let me see when. 1971, or thereabouts. And it's got a pretty good collection of his short fiction. So, quite happy. I mean, I love this novel, short fiction collection. So there's Lost Worlds, and then I also, I'll talk about them tomorrow, but there's a collected series where like all of his short fiction is collected that I kind of want to get, so I don't know. But anyway, I'll talk a bit more about Clark Ashton Smith tomorrow, because I've got 2 more books by him that will start off part 15. So anyway, those were the books from part 14 of my science fiction and fantasy library tour. Well, I will see you tomorrow, BookTube. Thank you.